Good morning. Welcome to Money Talks, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. I'm Regina Lay. In the headlines today, Senate President Tito Sotto says what he has with Lauren Legarda is technically not a power-sharing deal, but yes, she will take the reins at some point. Data just in shows some 2.26 million Filipinos were unemployed in December, with the unemployment rate holding steady. And the United States says it signed 11 new critical minerals framework deal with a handful of countries, including the Philippines. Good morning. So is there or isn't there a term-sharing deal in the Senate? Well, Senate President Tito Sotto says what's between him and Senator Lauren Legarda isn't a power-sharing deal. One day after the majority bloc foiled its most serious coup attempt yet, Sotto explained that yes, he will let Legarda take the helm of the Senate after the 2027 budget season or sometime in 2028. That means letting Legarda sit as SP in the last 2 or 3 months before the 20th Congress ends, per Mig Zubiri's suggestion. It was this photo from Senator Kiko Pangilinan that sparked rumors that a term-sharing deal was forged to prevent the coup, but Sotto told True FM yesterday that such a term was inaccurate. Hounded by reporters for days, Legarda keeps sidestepping all questions about the power play and leadership change at the Senate.
Wala kong ideya, wala kaming pinag-uusapan pa, at don't worry, tatanong ko sa kanya yung katanungan.
But the Senate presidency was indeed offered to you, ma'am. Could you confirm that po? Was it offered to you?
You're excited to have a headline. I know how you feel.
But you're ready to be SP once it's given to you, ma'am, the position. You're ready po.
Aba, ganyan din ako noon. You always put words into the mouth.
I was here the whole time. Bakit hindi nyo kino-cover yung aking 3-hour hearing on culture and the arts? Ba't hindi ganito kaigting ang inyong interest?
Kasi
On the establishment of the Department of Culture. That's my passion.
Of course, a power-sharing deal is not a new idea in Congress. Former Senators Franklin Drilon and Manny Villar had one before, as did Alan Peter Cayetano and Lord Alan Velasco in the lower house. Now, political scientist Julio Tihanki told our sister program sa Totoo Lang that Legarda did well in choosing to stay with the majority.
Term sharing si Senator Drilon at si Senator Villar, no, after 2007, di ba? Tapos pero hindi rin natapos ni Senator Villar yung term niya dahil nagku naman yung forces ni JPE. There is more at risk for Senator Lauren kung sumama siya sa minority at hindi rin siya sure na she will be in the driver's seat with the allies in the minority, diba? So, mas at home siya dito sa pangako. Kasi nga, ang number one ally naman ni Senator Tito Sotto ay si Senator Ping Lacson. And Senator Ping Lacson and Senator Lauren Legarda have a very close political and personal relationship.
We have new numbers just released by the Philippine Statistics Authority on unemployment. The latest data show the unemployment rate rose to 4.4, or rather held steady at 4.4% in December 2025. And that translates to about 2.26 million jobless Filipinos. For the breakdown, let's get out to our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza, reporting to us live from the PSA offices in Quezon City. Amy, what do you have?
Yes, Reg, the Philippine Statistics Authority just announced that the unemployment rate for December 2025 remains at 4.4%. This is similar to the data shown in November 2025 unemployment rate. This means that from 2.25 million Filipinos, there are 2.26 million Filipinos now who are unemployed. And this change is not so significant, Rich, if we see the numbers, because according to the data, it's actually just 7,000 increase in the unemployment number. So aside from that, we also saw today the number for the underemployment, and it's the first time since May 2024 that this is a single digit underemployment rate, which holds at 8%. And this also translates to 3.93 million Filipinos who are underemployed. And if we're going to compare it to the November 2025 data, this is actually 1.18 million lower than the 5.11 million tallied underemployed Filipinos for November 2025. Aside from that, we also saw that the reasons for unemployment was public construction, wherein there is a slight reduction on the employment in the construction sector. So that's one of the reasons why unemployment has slightly risen in December 2025 compared to November 2025, Reg.
Okay, so, well, the headline unemployment rate holding steady at 4.4, but the bad news, I guess, is underemployment is starting to tick up. We'll leave that there. But thank you so much for your breakdown. That was mobile journalist Amy Atienda from the PSA headquarters. Well, with inflation also starting to pick up, the Bangko Sentral is signaling a more cautious stance on further interest rate cuts. The BSP said its monetary board will review fresh economic data at its next policy meeting on February 19th, noting that the outlook for domestic growth has weakened further. It added that business sentiment continues to slide amid governance concerns and global trade uncertainty. January inflation released just yesterday ticked up to 2%, ending 10 straight months below the government's target band. And in 2025, the BSP cut rates 8 times amid lackluster economic growth. Even so, the central bank signaled that its easing cycle is nearing its end and that any additional rate cuts would be limited and guided by incoming data. It said domestic demand is still expected to recover gradually as earlier rate cuts take effect and public spending improves. The benchmark policy rate, of course, stands at 4.5% at the moment, a 3-year low. And BSP Governor Eli Romolono Jr. earlier said a further 25 basis point reduction remains possible if needed to support growth, but only if inflation stays under control. And that caution comes after fourth quarter 2025 GDP came in at just 3%, pulling full-year growth to its lowest in more than a decade. The United States says it has signed 11 new critical minerals framework agreements with several countries, including the Philippines. The U.S. State Department on its website said the deals aim to strengthen supply chains for critical minerals and rare earths used in advanced technologies and future, economic growth. It added agreements are meant to lay the groundwork for cooperation on pricing, project development, fair and transparent markets, and access to financing. As we speak, local authorities have yet to make an official announcement on this matter, so it's not clear what the Philippines has committed. But the deal is a part of a broader effort by the U.S. to break China's dominance in the industry. U.S. President Donald Trump also announced the creation of a critical mineral reserve called Project Vault, worth almost $12 billion. Well, new report shows that Filipino mobile users are increasingly worried about fraud, identity theft, and scams driven by artificial intelligence, or AI. I have to say I am one of those people. To talk more about this, we are joined by Chris Rokel, Chief Product Officer of cybersecurity firm Appdome. Good morning, Chris. Thanks for being with us here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You've come a long way. Thank you for. I'm pleased to have you in the studio.
All the way from Silicon Valley,
exactly,
California.
The heart of all things high tech and AI. So before we get to AI, I want you to talk me through this report that you guys had released. There are some very sobering numbers in there. So more than 43% of people that you surveyed in the Philippines said that they are worried about identity fraud. And in fact, that's the top concern.
It is.
What's behind that number?
Well, let's actually unpack it in a slightly different way.
Okay.
Right. So the big worry here in the Philippines, a mobile-first economy, is that account takeovers, fraud, is happening on a very increasing rate. So to use some local numbers, right, fraudulent activity in the Philippines has reached last year a rate of 4 trillion pesos last year
In losses.
in losses.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And what's happening is that almost 80% of that now is from what are called account takeovers, social engineering scams, and those types of non-credit card theft losses. Right. And so the citizens here are feeling this, right? They're the victims of it, right? And so that's what our survey is reflecting, right? And that they have these concerns over, is my mobile app safe?
Right.
Are my transactions safe?
Right.
And how do I protect myself? And the big challenge is consumers can't protect themselves. The technology, the bad actors out there simply are too sophisticated for consumers to protect themselves.
I mean, they're not completely without agency. I mean, the banks do a good job of reminding people to not give out your OTPs and, make sure you change your passwords every so often. You're smiling. Is that not enough?
That is definitely
Okay.
that is definitely not enough.
Okay.
The sophistication of attacks and threats out there is just too great, and AI is fueling this fire, unfortunately, because now attackers can use AI-based tools to accelerate the threats that they launch on individuals.
Right.
So really the responsibility is shifted from consumers like you and me
Right.
to the actual mobile brands themselves to protect consumers and their own financial systems, right? So they have the responsibility both to the consumer and to themselves.
Give me a specific example of that, of AI, of hackers, scammers using AI tools to, launch more sophisticated attacks. I mean, I know phishing is a big problem in the Philippines.
Yes.
So you're looking at AI-powered phishing techniques?
It goes beyond that at this
Okay.
point. So if you take an example like social engineering, there are now attacks out there where you'll have fake versions of the SSS app, and people will be called by an agent posing as someone from the government
Right.
that will lure somebody to download this
That
fake.
will sound very convincing.
Correct.
Okay.
Right? Convince somebody to download a fake version of the app and be actually able to take over an individual's phone, capture their credentials, and then
Oh,
from
wow.
there, they've got access to the accounts and they can start siphoning off money and have
Right.
access to all of these accounts. And so in this moment, how is a consumer able to protect themselves?
Because
right?
you didn't even hand over the data.
No.
Right? So
No,
they
what
just did it in the back end.
Correct. They
Okay.
basically, by installing that fake app, they're able to put the phone to sleep, basically put it in do not disturb mode,
Right.
and then take over the phone unknowingly to the consumer who took that call and installed that fake app.
Oh my gosh. Thereby gaining control over all their apps, all
Yes.
their banking apps, all their
Yeah.
insurance apps, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's very insidious. I mean, there are tools and technologies that can actually now help and solve and
Right.
stop these types of attacks. That's the message. Is
Right.
that, and there's two parts to it. One is there's a technology solve for it. I think the bigger issue is that the technology is going so fast. It's in order to, you have bad actors who have tools with AI, and the only way to win is you have to use AI to stop it.
Right, right. So what are some of these more sophisticated tools to combat these identity attacks? I mean, and I mean, to be fair to the companies, especially the banks as well, I know they're constantly playing catch up when it comes to these cybersecurity and tools and processes, right?
Yeah, and it's really time to change the game, if you will, because the old ways of solving kind of mobile security problems of doing lots of manual coding, it's over. Really, what mobile businesses need to do is switch to really more digital workflows that automate their processes for implementing security and being able to do full automations because they're under resource constraints themselves.
right.
How do you build technology to solve for all the new types of attacks? Doing all that work, behind a keyboard, trying to
Right.
pay people to keep up with it, you just can't do it. You need to move to automated workflows with AI-based systems to be able to keep up and stay ahead of the threat, as it were, within this mobile defense challenge.
Right. So you're looking at a complete overhaul of the workflow, not just leaving it to the IT department to,
Yeah,
buy the latest version of anti-hacking software.
Yeah, you can't just keep picking tools off the shelf and saying, okay, this is good enough. You really need to have a system approach.
Right.
And it's something that in our little corner of the world of mobile, which isn't really such a little corner of the world. I mean, if you look at the number of mobile apps, there's something like 7 million mobile
Right.
apps in the world.
Right. And people are still launching apps here.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the density rate of mobile phones in the Philippines is staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an
Yeah.
amazing mobile first economy. These mobile phones aren't going away
Right.
anytime soon. And it's pretty simple actually for these mobile businesses to make those types of changes.
I heard a CIO once told me, and it's always stuck with me. He says, in any organization, the weakest link is always the people, right?
Yeah.
So how do you combat that? I mean, because education is one part of it, but not everybody's interested in it, and not everybody takes cybersecurity courses if you're in a company. To be kept abreast of all the ways that hackers can try to steal your identity. So what's the answer there?
Well, I think that's where you have to rely on, your suppliers and your cybersecurity team to lean on each other to help do that. But from a systematic perspective, AppDome as a supplier of this type of technology, we have 75 dedicated engineers on one side of the equation. We have almost 40 cyber researchers. So we provide a way in order to keep them constantly updated with the latest threats
Right.
and attacks. And that's part of our value to them, right? So that they don't have to think about what's the next thing. They can focus on the safety of not only their systems, but part of what we really zero in on is making sure that they're delivering a great user experience
Right.
for all of us consumers
Right.
who need to be protected. Right, that is really core to the mission, and should be core to the mission of anybody who's in mobile app security. Is how are we making sure that the workflows that we're implementing and delivering don't affect the experience of you and me trying to get things done. We're trying to
Right.
buy things, and we want to do it safely
Do our work.
and do our
Yeah.
work. Get
Yeah,
things done.
Absolutely. Speaking of consumers, let me come back to your
Yeah,
report. There's
please.
another statistic there. It says 34% say, oh, not that one, sorry. Nearly 75% say they
Yes.
have deleted or abandoned apps as a result of all these attacks. Talk me
Correct.
through that.
This is an amazing statistic. We have been doing this survey now for 5 years, right? So this isn't like a one-shot
Right.
data point.
Yeah.
This is a tracking survey, and this is a very consistent piece of data. So what this says is that if consumers in the Philippines do not feel safe about an app, they will abandon. It's a two-sided coin here, right? If I'm a mobile app owner, I'm a mobile brand. The thing you always have to keep in mind is the switching costs within a mobile. The barrier is very low.
Right.
If I want to
Of course, yeah.
switch banks,
Yeah.
do I have to go to a branch?
Yeah.
No.
There's so many digital
Right.
bank options now.
Right? I could just delete that app, move my money somewhere else. So mobile brands really need to think about this, that I need to be able to prove my security, because if I don't, those people are walking. And that can be a real damage to my business.
So that's a real cost of business.
It is.
And not to mention the reputational risk.
Correct. And the other component of that is, 70% of those consumers value high levels of privacy, right? So you got to be thinking about protecting them, and on the same notion, right, knowing that they're going to they're going to walk out the door if I'm not thinking about these types of attacks and threats.
And finally, Chris,
Yes.
34%, that's the figure that
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, say that they know someone who's been a victim of attacks. I mean, that's not surprising to me, but put that into context. How does that compare to other countries or other jurisdictions?
It is. It is actually a little bit lower than
Oh, wow,
some
okay.
other. Not much.
Yeah.
Right. There are some amazing markets. You know, we're a global company,
Right.
and the Philippines market is one of the key mobile first markets. Another one for us is Brazil, which has a little bit of a higher rate, but sad to say it's in the top 3. But it's amazing for everybody here who's behind the camera. That means that 2 or 3 of us are in that statistic
Right,
that
absolutely.
we know
I know
somebody.
a lot of people who've fallen prey, and particularly for those who use digital banks.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one big criticism or fear of digital banks that
Yeah.
a lot of people have here, I think. So, but we shall leave that there.
All right.
Bottom line,
Bottom line,
institutions need to think of this holistically.
They do. They need to think about it as a system level approach and to rethink how to focus on workflows rather than trying to pull pieces off the shelf like they're at a grocery store.
The old ways of doing things don't work anymore. We'll leave
Yeah.
that there. Thank you so much for
Thank
explaining
you.
all of that to us. That was Chris Rocco, Chief Product Officer of cybersecurity firm Aptome. We're going to take a short break, but a look at the markets. When we return, there's a bit of a sell-off. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Regina Lay. Checking on the markets now. Growth fears rattling Wall Street on Thursday night with the Nasdaq shedding, let's see, 1.5%, well, 1.6% at that, extending its worst rout since April 2025. And both the Dow and S&P 500 also falling by about 1 and almost 0.25%. Government and private data show low job openings, high claims for unemployment insurance, and a sharp rise in corporate job cuts in the U.S. Now, benchmark 10-year Treasury yields tick down to 4.209%, and gold prices also sliding again, now down to $48.61 an ounce. But here's what really dragged market sentiment down. Crypto suffered its biggest one-day drop since the 2022 crash, with Bitcoin tumbling by 13% as of 4 p.m. in yesterday's trading. Now, it's wiped out all of its gains that it made under the second Trump presidency, erasing more than $13 billion by some estimates. And the situation was made worse by thinning liquidity and the slowdown in digital assets demand. Stock futures retreating as well following that broad market sell-off, with the Nasdaq down by nearly 1%. The S&P by half a percent, and the Dow sliding by over 0.25%. Now, Asian markets, so take a look. Not surprisingly, they are looking weaker this morning, tracking Wall Street. South Korea's Kospi is down by, oh gosh, look at that, a whopping 3%, whilst Australia's ASX losing by 1.8%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 sliding 0.8% at the moment in morning trade. Let's take a look now at our own markets on this final trading day of the week. The PSEI opening Friday near the flat line at 6383.05. The stock market picked up a win yesterday, inching up by 10% on the back of relatively benign inflation data. The broader all shares index advanced by nearly 1%, with sectoral gauges a mixed bag. As for the Philippine peso, it opened today a tad weaker as well. Let's see, 58.75 to the dollar. Peso is, remember, that jumped to a 7-week high yesterday at about 58.69 to the dollar, just a tad, just marginally off from today, as faster inflation reinforced hopes of a final one more rate cut this month. 10-year government bond yields, let's see, ticking up to 5.962% from the previous close of 5.958. In other news, tourist arrivals in Asia Pacific are up, but it's still below pandemic levels. The ASEAN Tourism Forum highlights the importance of improving connectivity in emerging destinations, and Jade Agustin has that story.
UN Tourism says international tourist arrivals globally went up by 4% in 2025, significantly up from the previous year. The agency released the year's first World Tourism Barometer, showing an estimated 1.52 billion international tourists in 2025. That figure is up by almost 60 million compared to 2024. On year, Africa saw the highest percentage increase in 2025, as it welcomed 81 million international tourists. Europe, the world's largest destination region, welcomed 793 million arrivals. The Americas had 218 million, and the Middle East let in 100 million arrivals. Though Asia and the Pacific saw an increase in tourist arrivals, it is still 9% below 2019 levels per UN data. So, there is much to do. At the recently concluded ASEAN Tourism Forum in Cebu, ministers highlighted the potential of cruise tourism to promote multiple destinations in the region. In a statement, the ministers also recognized the importance of improving connectivity in emerging destinations.
The meeting commended ongoing collaboration between the tourism and transport sectors, including joint efforts to address connectivity gaps, improve access to emerging destinations, and strengthen joint promotional activities.
The Philippines may not have hit its target arrivals target last year, but Filipinos are certainly leaving in droves. Visa processing company VFS Global says the number of Filipinos applying for visas jumped by 8% in 2025 on year. Among the countries that received the most number of applicants are Australia, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Based on trends, VFS Global believes there's more room for growth this year.
We still see application numbers in line with what we had forecasted, which is still slightly marginally higher than 2025. But it's more short distance travel that we're seeing the numbers increase, like, where there's a lot of travel happening. But I think overall we are optimistic to see at least a 5 to 7% growth going forward.
For 2026, UN Tourism is expecting a 3 to 4% growth in international tourism if Asia and the Pacific continues to recover and if geopolitical conflicts do not escalate. I'm Jade Agustin, BR1 News.
And that is it for Money Talks today. I'm Regina Lay. Catch us again on Monday, 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great weekend.